Have you ever woken up with that strange feeling? Like something bigger was trying to send you a message? What if that fleeting moment, so quiet, so ordinary, is actually the doorway to the entire universe? Alan Watts believed the gateway isn't out there. It's inside you. And maybe in the way your mind naturally works when you simply let go. Now, science is starting to confirm what Watts sensed decades ago. There may be a hidden channel between your brain and the cosmos, and it could be opening right now. Stay with me until the end of this video because we're going deep into how everyday moments, like waking up without an alarm or surrendering to a simple rhythm, could be the key to cosmic connection. And at the very end, I'll share a simple practice you can try today, one that brings together Alan Watts' timeless wisdom and the latest insights from neuroscience. You'll never see your own mind the same way again. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had an experience that felt like it came from beyond the body or mind? That feeling that something or someone was guiding you without any rational explanation? Do you believe these moments are just brain chemistry, or could there be more to it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your insight might be exactly what someone else needs to hear.
What if the most ordinary moments, like that subtle shift when you wake up naturally, no alarm clock needed, what if that holds a secret? A secret about connecting to, well, the entire cosmos.
A deep question, isn't it?
Yeah, and what if these, age-old practices, but adapted for today, are actually a powerful way to rediscover that connection?
It's a mystery that really spans millennia, different cultures. It asks us to look at ourselves and the universe maybe a bit differently.
Absolutely. So today we're doing a deep dive into this really fascinating intersection point. We're looking at modern shamanism, the philosophy of Alan Watts, and what happens when science gets involved. When we use science to explore these incredible experiences, people report seeking cosmic connection.
Right, and we've got a great mix of sources to guide us here. Everything from, recent neuroscience papers looking at altered states to classic texts on ancient traditions, and of course the wonderfully insightful writings of Alan Watts himself.
Yeah, so our mission today is to kind of cut through the noise, pull out the most important nuggets, and try to figure out, could modern shamanism, especially when you look at it through Watts' unique lens, could it really be a bridge to something cosmic?
And just as crucial, what does the science actually tell us about these powerful, sometimes, well, frankly, inexplicable experiences people are having?
Exactly. So get ready to maybe look at consciousness, connection, and this whole idea of trusting the flow in possibly a whole new light.
Okay, so let's really sit with that central question for a second. This modern take on shamanism. Could it genuinely be a bridge to the cosmos in a way Alan Watts might, recognize or align with?
That's the core puzzle piece, isn't it? And Watts is just such a perfect guide for this journey because his whole philosophy, drawing so much from Taoism and Zen, it's all about surrender. Surrendering to the universal flow, trusting the natural process. He had that great line, something like, the more you relinquish power, trust others, the more powerful you become.
And he wasn't just talking about interpersonal dynamics there. He meant the universe itself.
He saw our own spontaneous functions like your heart beating, breathing, or that feeling, like we said, of waking up naturally. He called it the system nervous. And he saw it operating just like the cosmos operates, spontaneously.
It's not something you force, it just is.
Yeah.
And he felt that trusting this sort of effortless operation was key, absolutely fundamental to connecting with the universe.
Exactly. And then you look at modern shamanism, and so many practices involve precisely this kind of surrender, right? Whether it's letting go into the rhythm of drumming.
Yeah, or just allowing visions or insight to emerge without trying to steer them.
It deeply echoes Watts' idea, opening up to that natural universal flow. And you see why these practices attract people today, people feeling this profound need to connect with something bigger, something beyond the everyday busy mind.
But this is where it gets really interesting, where our sources kind of present a fascinating tension. Because on one side, you have neuroscience showing us some pretty compelling evidence about what's happening in the brain during these practices. Like research indicates rhythmic sounds, binaural beats maybe in certain frequencies.
Right, they can induce altered states linked with vivid imagery, insights. I think I saw studies on theta waves.
Exactly, the theta range, often around 4 to 7 hertz, seems linked to those dreamlike visionary states. And other work shows practices like shamanic journeying or deep meditation can increase brain coherence.
Meaning different parts of the brain are working more in sync?
Precisely. And then there's the research, in legal context, of course, on certain plant medicines, like ayahuasca, showing significant changes in the brain's default mode network.
That's the bit linked to our sense of self, right? Our inner monologue.
That's the one. And altering it seems linked to increased connectivity, those intense feelings of unity, of interconnectedness people so often report. Even, civil rituals seem to impact our chemistry, reducing stress hormones like cortisol.
So science is definitely painting a picture of the physiological shifts. It confirms these practices do induce altered states, change brain activity in ways that correlate with feelings of unity, altered perception. Watts would probably just nod at this, wouldn't he?
Probably. See it as the universe's system nervous expressing itself through the brain. He talked about synergy, that intelligence emerging from a complex system working together. Our brains, our bodies, they're definitely complex systems.
There's always a but, isn't there?
There often is. Here's the challenge for a purely scientific explanation. While science can describe the brain changes, like, say, deactivation of the parietal cortex, which helps locate us in space, maybe making the self feel less distinct.
Okay.
It doesn't fully account for the content of the experience.
Yeah.
Why do people across cultures, across time, consistently report encountering what feel like external messages, interacting with perceived guides, or having these profound transcendent moments that feel like connecting to something truly beyond the physical brain?
Yeah, that subjective quality is hard to just reduce down.
Exactly. Yeah. And Watts, with his characteristic wisdom and, let's face it, humor, would probably look at that scientific boundary and just smile.
Right. He saw the universe itself as this endless mystery, constantly unfolding.
He wouldn't feel the need to neatly box the experience. Is it just brain? Is it cosmic? He'd invite us to explore it, to live into the mystery. He famously said, I don't know it's the same thing as I love. Embracing the unknown was part of the adventure for him.
So embracing the unknown is part of the deep dive itself.
Precisely. So we're looking at the roots of these practices, what science can tell us about the how, what Watts offers about the meaning, the way of being that aligns with it all, and ultimately how we can maybe learn to embrace that mystery and cultivate a bit more trust in the flow.
Okay, so let's dig a bit deeper then into modern shamanism itself. Where did it actually come from? Beyond the, pop culture ideas, what are people actually doing? And what's the scientific take?
Well, the roots go way back. Ancient traditions documented by scholars like Mircea Eliade, studying indigenous cultures worldwide. These traditions often involved a shaman entering altered states. Drumming was common. Sometimes plant allies were used to journey into what they saw as non-ordinary reality.
And the purpose was usually healing or guidance.
Often, yes. Healing, baiting knowledge, seeking guidance for the community, but always grounded in this really profound trust in the intelligence of the cosmos, or the spirit world, depending on the cultural context.
And today, that core essence is still there, seeking connection, trusting signals, but the practices look different.
They've adapted. For people in urban settings, often without direct ties to traditional lineages. So you see things like guided drum journeys using audio tracks.
To get that rhythmic state.
Exactly. Or urban rituals, maybe meditations, visualizations in parks, or even at home. And where it's legal and done responsibly, ceremonial or therapeutic use of plant medicines like psilocybin or ayahuasca, but again, adapted for a modern seeker.
Designed for people wanting that deep connection, but living very different lives.
Right. And as we touched on, science is actively studying these modern versions. We know the rhythmic audio, drumming, binaural beats can shift brain states, potentially inducing those theta waves.
The visionary state one.
And fMRI studies show meditation and similar practices can increase functional connectivity, coherence across brain networks.
Yeah, and that work on substances like ayahuasca is pretty compelling, showing how it seems to temporarily loosen up the default mode network.
Potentially leading to that sense of ego dissolution, interconnectedness people describe. And even the finding that simple rituals can lower cortisol. It validates that calming, centering effect. These are all the ways the physical system nervous is responding. It echoes Watts' idea of synergy, right? The complex system showing emergent intelligence.
But again, we hit that limit. Science pinpoints the mechanisms, brain waves, network changes, maybe less activity in the parietal cortex, reducing the sense of self, but the meaning, the content.
That's the gap. Why the similar archetypal figures reported by different people, or messages that feel profoundly wise, not just random noise. Science reaches its current frontier there.
And that's where Watts' perspective becomes so valuable again.
Because for Watts, it wasn't about dissecting the cause down to the last neuron. It was about understanding the experience itself, its place in the grand cosmic dance.
So how would he frame that? What are the core Watts ideas here?
Okay, so it really comes back to three core things for him, I think. Surrender, trust, and unity. Surrender is the bedrock.
The more you relinquish power.
Exactly. That applies to trying to force understanding or control the outcome of an experience. When you relinquish control in, say, a drum journey, you allow whatever needs to emerge to actually emerge.
It's like that parable he told about the person trying to manage everything frantically.
Yes, the overwhelmed worker. And when they finally just let go, trust others, suddenly everything starts cooperating. Everything cooperated with him because he had touched the key, Watts said. Letting go is the key. It allows the universe to work its magic through you.
Okay, so surrender. What about trust?
That ties right in, trusting the spontaneous. Watts loved using our own involuntary actions as an example. You don't know where your decisions come from, he'd say. They pop up like hiccups.
Oh,
He saw insights, intuitive leaps appearing the same way, not willed into being, but arising from that deeper, spontaneous intelligence of the system, which perfectly mirrors how visions or messages seem to just pop up in altered states without conscious effort.
It fits with his invitation. The way to become one with the universe is to trust it.
Precisely. And then there's unity. This fundamental Wattsian idea that the universe is an interconnected whole, that feeling of being a separate, isolated self, ultimately an illusion for him.
The more you let go of it, the more you realize self and other
Aren't separate things. Exactly.
Yeah.
And this resonates so powerfully with those feelings of oneness, dissolving boundaries that people report in deep meditative or shamanic states, which, interestingly, also correlates with increased neural synchrony in some studies.
So he saw it all as one unified reality expressing itself. The great Tao flows everywhere.
That's the essence. So for Watts, this whole debate, is it brain chemistry? Is it a spirit? It's less important than the experience itself and what you learn from it. Science describing brain changes, that's just the universe expressing itself in another way.
Yeah.
Part of the cosmic flow.
He wouldn't try to nail down the cause of a vision.
No, he'd flow with it. Ask, okay, let's see what you're going to do with this experience.
It really shifts the focus back to personal engagement, transformation, rather than seeking external proof. And you see these themes, surrender, trust, unity, not just in modern shamanism or Watts, but echoing elsewhere too, right?
Absolutely. The threads are fascinating. Watts himself drew heavily from Zen Buddhism practices like Zazen, aiming for no-self, Satori, dissolving the ego, leading to unity flow.
And Taoism's Wu Wei, effortless action.
Another parallel, surrendering to the natural way.
Yeah.
But it's not just Eastern paths. You see similar things in Sufism, the mystical side of Islam, with practices like dhikr, aiming for ecstatic states, union.
Or in Hinduism, like Advaita Vedanta.
Exactly. Emphasizing the unity of the individual soul with the absolute reality. Mircea Eliade, who studied shamanism so deeply, noted these cross-cultural similarities in seeking transcendence.
And there might even be shared brain patterns, like gamma waves in contemplative states.
There's emerging work exploring that, yeah. For Watts, these would just be different dialects of the same universal language, the Tao flowing through human culture.
But okay, we have to address the skeptical views too. The sources mention those. What's that perspective?
Right, it's important. A significant viewpoint argues that these experiences, however powerful they feel subjectively, are essentially epiphenomena of the brain.
Meaning like byproducts of altered brain activity.
No.
Not necessarily contact with something external, non-physical.
That's the idea. The changes seen in brain networks, especially with psychedelics maybe, are seen as a sufficient explanation for the unusual experiences.
So the visions, the guides, the cosmic insights, they're internal constructs generated by the brain in an unusual state.
That's the argument. Some researchers compare these states to things the brain can definitely produce, like lucid dreams or maybe those vivid hallucinations during sleep paralysis.
And psychology points to suggestion, placebo.
Absolutely. The power of expectations, suggestion, the placebo effect, they undeniably shape subjective experience, particularly in ritual settings.
So for a skeptic, it kind of boils down to neurochemistry, psychological factors, maybe dreamlike states.
That's the core of it. And, the lack of objective, verifiable proof for spirits or external cosmic intelligences is a strong point if you're working within a purely materialist framework.
So how would Watts, Mr. Embrace the Mystery, handle that?
He wouldn't just dismiss the science or the skepticism. He'd likely see it as Well, another part of the cosmic dance, the universe exploring itself through the scientific method. The brain is part of the cosmos, after all.
True.
For him, the subjective reality, the profound impact of the experience on the individual, that would still be valid. Regardless of whether you can measure a spirit with a machine, he'd probably circle back to his comfort with the unknown. That, I don't know, is the same thing as a love idea. The mystery isn't a problem to solve, it's a reality to live with.
Okay, this brings us to a really practical point. If Watts encourages trusting the flow and modern shamanism offers ways to explore these states, how can someone listening actually start to explore this idea, this cosmic connection in their own life, grounded in that Watts philosophy of trust?
That's the key question, isn't it? And the good news is, you don't need to become a traditional shaman or necessarily use potent substances to begin exploring surrender and connection. Watts' wisdom suggests we can tap into this flow in pretty accessible ways.
Like a guided journey light? Is that a thing?
Kind of. Inspired by the principles, yeah. You could try a simple audio-guided journey. Find a quiet space, use headphones, listen to some drumming audio, or maybe binaural beats perhaps, aiming for that theta frequency range we mentioned. Just 15-20 minutes, maybe a few times a week.
And the Wattsian angle is, don't try to make something happen. Just surrender to the sound and observe.
Precisely. Set an intention, maybe just to be open. Visualize a simple landscape if it helps, like a beach or forest, and then just allow whatever images, sensations, thoughts emerge, without judgment, without effort. Your mantra could be something simple like, I trust the cosmos.
Okay, it taps into those potential flow states, the brain coherence maybe, but framed through trust.
Exactly. Trusting the spontaneous, just like Watts suggested.
What about outside of those dedicated sessions? How do we press the flow into, just daily urban life?
Watts saw the cosmic in the mundane, remember? So an urban ritual could be super simple, daily, 5 or 10 minutes. Find a spot window, balcony, park bench, maybe hold an object that feels meaningful, focus on your breath. And just visualize a connection, extending from you, through the building, into the earth, up to the sky, the stars, the sun.
And silently affirm.
Something like, I am in flow with the cosmos right here, right now. It grounds you, it might reduce stress, like the research suggests rituals can, and it connects you to that bigger reality Watts always pointed to.
And you mentioned a stellar pause, inspired by Watts.
Yeah, this is maybe the simplest gesture, just a conscious pause.
Oh.
A few minutes daily, to acknowledge the cosmic reality we're in. Pick a time. Hold a simple object to stone, maybe just your own hand. Close your eyes. Visualize yourself not as separate, but as a tiny node in this immense cosmic network. Connected.
And the thought.
Repeat softly. I trust the flow of the universe, as Watts taught. It's personal, it's not appropriating anything specific, it just brings that sense of synergy, that interconnectedness into your awareness for a moment.
For someone totally new to this, what's the best advice? How to start?
Start small. Be consistent. And approach it with curiosity, not rigid expectations. Maybe keep a journal. Note experiences, subtle shifts. Set a simple intention before you practice. I intend to open to trust. Remember, it's exploration. It's not necessarily about achieving some grand outcome right away. And importantly, if anything brings up difficult feelings, confusion, it's always wise to pause. Maybe seek support from a mental health professional or someone experienced in guiding these states safely.
And be respectful of traditions.
Absolutely crucial. These are adapted practices for modern seekers. Always approach traditional indigenous ways with immense respect and only under proper guidance if that path genuinely calls to you.
These practices really feel like an invitation to live Watts' philosophy, don't they? To actively practice letting go, trusting the universe, seeing how the cosmos might just cooperate when we do. The more you let go of it, the more you realize self and other.
That's exactly it. They're like entry points. Ways to start experiencing that oneness Watts described. Engaging with the mystery directly, not just thinking about it.
So we've taken quite a journey here. From the ancient roots of shamanism to its modern forms, we've looked at what science can and maybe can't illuminate about the brain in these states.
Filtered it all through the profound, yet kind of playful lens of Alan Watts.
And considered the skeptical view right alongside the reports of mystical connection.
And that consistent thread, woven through it all, beautifully put by Watts, is that trusting the spontaneous flow of the universe. That might just be the most direct path to realizing we're already part of it. The way to become one with the universe is to trust it.
Yeah. Modern shamanism, related contemplative practices, whether you explain them via neuroscience or through transcendent experience, they seem to offer powerful ways to actually practice that trust, to open ourselves to connections that can feel, well, pretty cosmic.
And for you, listening, having explored the science, grappled with the mystery, walked through the philosophy with us, maybe the core question isn't nailing down what causes these experiences. Is it brain states? Is it something more? Perhaps it's more about how you choose to engage with that mystery.
It's how you choose to trust the process, what you learn as it unfolds.
Exactly. And if trusting the flow, as Watts so profoundly suggested, really does allow the universe to, in a sense, cooperate with us. Here's a final thought to ponder.
How might actively practicing that kind of trust, not just in a special ritual space, but in the everyday uncertainties, the challenges, the simple moments of your life, how might that reveal the cosmic dance that's playing out in every single moment?
Before you go, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt a moment of deep connection, like the universe was gently whispering to you? Maybe during a dream, a breath, a pause you couldn't explain. What did it feel like? And more importantly, what did it change in you? If this video stirred something inside, share it with someone you care about, someone who's also searching for meaning, mystery, or a deeper sense of flow. And now you'll see 2 videos on the screen. Each one is a doorway, one into the science of altered states, the other into the spiritual practices behind them. Click one and continue your journey. You never know what part of you might wake up next.